Welcome back to the Talking Sports podcast right here on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Guys, we appreciate everyone that is clicking, watching, listening to, or whatever you are doing with this episode. Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the wild card round of the NFL playoffs. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our preview. And we're back with another NFL preview. We're going to be previewing the divisional round this time, NFL divisional round. And but if you guys didn't miss last week's episode and you want to check that out, feel free to do. Might be a little outdated at the moment, but it's all good. But before we get into that, we are, as always, sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. It is the best time to get onto Underdog Fantasy. Type in underdogfantasy.com, go to the App Store, type in Underdog Fantasy, or click in our description at underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you guys use code TSP for a 100% deposit match up to $100, starting at $10 up to 100. Like I said, it's the best time of the year, NFL playoffs. You guys, make sure you guys check that out. And Jer, how we doing, my man?
I'm doing good. And as well as Underdog, don't forget to follow us on Talking Sports PD, at Talking Sports PD, and all social media platforms that we are on: Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We've been posting our spread picks for these games on Twitter. So yeah, keep up to date with us on all our content, not just our podcast, but as well as other posts. We're very active on those. So at Talking Sports PD, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.
Yeah, and as always, like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you guys drop your comments, drop your picks, all your fun stuff. We have a lot to get to. Obviously, last week we had 6 games to get to. This game we got 4 games to get to. We're going to go like we did last week in order of games being played: 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Divisional round. This is obviously one of the more fun rounds in the NFL playoffs. So, Jay, let's get right into it. We got the 4-seed Texans, who are coming off a blowout win against the Cleveland Browns. And we got the 1-seed Ravens, who were home for a wild card weekend. What are your initial thoughts of this matchup?
Yeah, so I picked the Browns last week. I knew it would be, tosser turn, but I picked the Browns. You picked the Texans, and then the Texans just took it away. It was close in the beginning, and then they just rolled with it. So CJ Stroud, he came out, he balled that day, and that defense. What was it? 3 pick sixes. I mean, 2 pick sixes. Error on Joe Flacco, some bad throws, but that's what we knew. Joe Flacco is capable of. He's the good and the bad of him. And you mentioned we watched it together right before that game. You just mentioned the Browns is really good, but they're not good on the road, and it definitely showed that game. But I'm still gonna say the Browns is really good, and now CJ Stroud's probably has a tougher test because the Browns D on the road's not as good I think as the Ravens D just in general. But I'm not taking that away from anything. Browns D's top 3 defense in the league, and CJ Stroud killed them. But now you got the 1-seed Ravens. Didn't have to play last week because they had the bye. And I think the last time the Ravens were the 1-seed, I think they lost to the Titans, right? They got upset.
That was Lamar. Sorry to cut you off. That was Lamar's first MVP season.
Okay, yeah. So they rolled through the league, lost to the Titans in the playoffs. And the thing with that, though, which is different than this year, I think, is Lamar wasn't a pocket passer. And I think the Titans that game, they forced him to become a pocket passer to beat him. And now Lamar shows that he developed, and now he shows he can stay in the pocket and make some throws, along with having a better receiving core than he did. Mark Andrews, I don't know if it's smoke, but apparently he's been full participant in practice. So it looks like he's going to play. And then I think the Ravens are one of the best. I think I have it here. They're one of the best, most tie for the most takeaways on defense, which can, get in this, Stroud could, easily turn the ball over against this defense. But this defense the secondary is really good. The linebackers are extremely good. Queen and Roquan Smith. So I think, they just got to get the Stroud. but he showed he could come through in big moments against really good defenses. So those are my first thoughts, and you go with you.
Yeah, you mentioned the last time the Ravens had a bye, they got bounced right away by the Titans in the divisional round. Yeah, like it always is interesting how, and we'll talk about the 49ers in a bit, but how teams come off a bye, right? Some teams like
Mhm.
it, some teams need the rest, but some teams are playing their best football, and that week off doesn't always help them in the way that I think most of fans or media think that it's supposed to. But look, the Ravens on paper and all through all the stats and through all the metrics are the better team. They're third in defense according to PFF in the NFL. This is the Ravens, and they're sixth in offense according to PFF. So the Ravens that we all know have been one of the better teams this year. I picked them to win the division earlier this year. Kind of got caught a little easier when Joe Burrow went down with an injury that kind of helped them a bit. But the Ravens had a great year. So last week, CJ Stroud played his first NFL playoff game. Didn't seem like the stage was too big for him. This week, he's playing his first NFL playoff road game. So the stage gets a little bit bigger, right? Like, and you have
Yeah.
we assume going to be the MVP in Lamar Jackson on the other side of the ball. And we're recording on a Wednesday night, but today during the day on Wednesday, it sounds like Mark Andrews was a full participant, like you said. So it sounds like he's probably getting his best target back, and we know what the Ravens' offense is with Mark Andrews and without Mark Andrews. Look, this is a type of team where I think if this type of game where if the Texans want to win this game or want to be in this game, CJ Stroud's gonna have to play really well. He's gonna have to play like he did last week. And I'm not saying he's not going to, but it's that type of game where I think the Ravens probably have John Harbaugh, I think Lamar Jackson, you would assume Jared have learned from their mistakes what happened last time they had a bye and do things a
Yeah.
little bit differently. But this is also the type of game where Houston can pounce early, right? Like Houston has all the energy. Even though it's the division round, Houston's also once again playing with nothing to lose, in my opinion. The
Mhm.
Ravens are almost 10-point favorites. The Ravens are the 1 seed. The Ravens are at home. CJ Stroud's a rookie. He's 22, right? Like Lamar's going to win the second MVP. I think the pressure is really on the Ravens in this week. Ravens are at home. It's a fun matchup, right? Like it's a really cool quarterback matchup that nobody really anticipated heading into the season. CJ Stroud versus Lamar
Yeah.
Jackson in the divisional round. It's a fascinating one. It's going to be interesting because, and I think we have to talk more. Maybe I'll get your thoughts on this in a second. But the Texans defense, right?
Mhm.
They played really well against the Browns. But that's what the Browns and Joe Flacco, and I know Joe Flacco is a fun and cool story, but they're taking obviously a step up in class. I want to see how the Texans go on the road and have to limit a guy that can now throw in the pocket and also a guy that can get out of the pocket, obviously, and make things happen with his legs and Lamar Jackson. I want to see how the Texans on defense can kind of adjust because it's a completely different game plan. I know the Ravens like to run the ball, but when you have Lamar Jackson under center compared to Joe Flacco, I think your game planning completely different.
Yeah, and when we talk about the Texans defense, I think this is like a very underrated group. I mean, they kind of remind me of like that, not themselves, but just like the defense from like the Bengals when they made that run to the Super
Yeah.
Bowl. Like a very underrated group. They get takeaways, and like you said, yes, it was. I'm not just talking about like the Browns game because obviously there were some pretty bad takeaways that Joe Flacco threw out there, but they also just capitalize on the opportunities they're given, and they get takeaways. They have some edge rushers and defensive linemen like you never really besides Will Anderson, like you haven't really heard of those guys to be honest that
Mhm.
pop off my head. But they get it done. And I know you mentioned like, yeah, if the Texans want to win this game, CJ Stroud's got to play really well. But like, I feel like if the Texans want to win any game, that CJ Stroud's going to play really well.
Yeah.
Like he's the quarterback, and plus he's been playing super well, and he's the reason why. I mean, along with D'Amico Ryans, I'll give him credit, but like he's the reason why like they're in this position. So yes, he's gonna have to play really well. But I mean, you give one or two opportunities to that defense, to kind of change the game. I think they've capitalized on it so far this year. So I wouldn't. Yes, they're not flashy. Like they're not the best unit in the league, or maybe not. They're probably not top 10 in the league. But like,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know, debatable. But
I'm about to give you
they're
some
like
stats.
they're not like what you look at when you think of the Texans.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So like, but if Lamar Jackson gives them a couple up, he's done a lot. Like he fumbles in the pocket. trying to like look for an outlet to run, they could just get one maybe takeaway that could change the game, bring momentum to that offense, and the offense can certainly capitalize on the turnovers that they're given by their defense. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. So yeah, I think that defense is a very underrated group that could potentially make some swings in their favor.
Yeah, the Houston Texans are ranked 9th in the NFL in defense,
Yeah.
which is, I guess, I would say surprising for most. They are run defense is a little subpar. They're 14th in the NFL at run defense, but in coverage they are 6th in the
Okay. Yeah.
NFL. So they're a good coverage team. And look, if in this type of game, when you're even though they won the division, but they're 9.5, almost 10-point dogs. You're going to the 1 seed. You want to make the Ravens play tight, right? Like they did that against Tennessee a couple years ago in the division round. Make this one in this type of game, lower the possessions, limit the amount of possessions, put more pressure on the Ravens offense to have to score every time they touch the ball. And 2, and I think something that has completely overtaken this team since about halfway through the year and into the wild card round against the Browns, Devin Singletary is having a really underrated year, and the Texans are running the ball. Sorry about that.
I mean, last game they didn't even have to run the ball that much to be. Oh no, they did run the ball more.
They did run the ball, but
yeah,
obviously, Jared, this is a stupid cliche, but what helps a young quarterback, but it helps any quarterback, is a running game, right? And a way to win the time of possession, to obviously minimize the times the Ravens touch the ball, is to run the ball. I think if Houston can get a consistent run game, which they have shown in the last half of the year with Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce as well, I think Houston has a chance in this game. Like I think Houston has the weapons, some weapons.
Yeah.
They have some solid weapons: Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz. They're playing really well. So look, I think Houston's at an all-time high. Baltimore's getting a very hot team, a team that snuck into the playoffs as winning the division, and then a team that beat the Browns, who everyone was in love with the Browns. And I do think the defense on the Texans is much better than
people
I think. Yeah, I think what people have said. But
the thing with the Ravens, like you mentioned, like the Texans are good. They have Derek Stingley. They're good passing, and then they have passing defense, and then they got like Will Anderson, a couple of like those kind of guys to get to the quarterback in the passing game. But, and I feel like I say this with a lot of teams, but it's the Ravens' DNA is run the ball. I mean, it's changed a little more this year. You see Lamar more in the pocket, but I mean, they could run in so many facets with Lamar, the running backs. I mean, they have 2 or 3. I know a lot of injuries have happened, so maybe like 2 now. And then like wide receiver screens or wide receiver sweeps. So that's the only area where, yeah, like if they just beat up and just run the ball, I mean, score, but like get just drives, time of possession, like you mentioned. And then the other aspect, like you said, like if CJ Stroud's gonna have to win this game, I think like when I say that, I think I mean like I don't think they're gonna be able to run the ball like against this. I don't think Houston will be able to run the ball against this Ravens team. I might be totally wrong. Devil Singletary might go for 100 yards and they could win this game, but like I just don't think the Texans are going to be able to move the trenches like they did against the Browns, which was surprising.
I think it's flipped.
You think they can?
I think the Ravens are a better pass defense than they are rush defense. And I know historically the Ravens are a better up front. We think of trenches, but I think they're back 7 with, I think Queen and Roquan Smith are very good in coverage. And I think Marlon Humphrey obviously is a very good corner in the secondary. I think the Ravens are a better pass defense than they are. They're second to
they're like a better rushing defense. I just think they are still a really good rushing defense.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think pass defense they were second in the National Football League, one behind your New York Jets. So
you need to win something.
Yeah, you win something. You win the number 1 coverage grade according to PFF at 94.4. But look, it's gonna be a slugfest. I do think this game, if Houston wants to win this game, I don't know if they want to get in a complete shootout. But we have seen Baltimore has beaten the what out of people this year.
Yeah,
they smoked Detroit, who's in the divisional round and who's favored to go to the NFC Championship. They smoked a Miami team 56-19. Like this Baltimore team is very good. They're very explosive. I don't think you want to get in a shootout with them. I don't know if Houston's ready to get in a shootout with them, even though they played really well offensively against Cleveland. Could that be an anomaly? I don't know.
See, I don't think like the Ravens. I know what you mean when you say shootout, like high scoring game, basically.
Yeah, 30s, 40s.
I
That's
think
what I
like
mean.
the Ravens aren't a team. Like, yes, they'll have some big plays, but they're not a team that Lamar's just going to drive down the field and pick up like quick yards with his arm. Like their sense of a shootout is just taking it down the field and scoring. And whereas like the Texans' sense is like put in CJ Stroud's hands, get a quick touchdown, or like 4 or 5 throws into the end zone. Like, so I think they can. I mean, I'm not saying that. I think they can survive in a shootout if it happens.
Oh, Houston.
What? Yeah, Houston.
Yeah.
Because that means like it kind of takes if it is a shootout, it means the Ravens defense just doesn't know what's like how to stop it. And that gives them the advantage. And like the Texans D is obviously Ravens D's here, Texans D. So I think they can survive in a shootout. Not saying they will, not saying it will be a shootout. But if the case occurs, I think they'll be okay. If it ends up like Ravens running down the field, touchdown, get a stop, or turnover, run down like that, kind of like shootout slaughter for the Ravens, like then yeah, like you said, they take care of teams.
Okay. With that being said, Texans at Ravens at the moment on Wednesday night. Consensus spread, Baltimore is -9.5. Obviously, we'll put our spread picks over the weekend on social media, like JR said in the beginning. So make sure you follow us at Talking Sports PD on Twitter for those. JR, you're starting the ball rolling tonight in the picks. Houston, Baltimore. Who do you got going to the AFC Championship game?
So I feel bad because I feel like everyone just keeps downing CJ Stroud. I'll be rooting for him. However, I think Ravens are going to take care of business. A full team effort on that side. And I think Lamar goes to the AFC Championship with the Ravens.
Yeah, you and I talked off air. There's a lot of big spreads outside of Buffalo and Kansas City, which will be the last game we're talking about. The second closest to Buffalo, Kansas City is Detroit, Tampa Bay, which is around 6.5. I feel like some underdog is going to win, but I'm gonna go Baltimore. I'm gonna go with the Ravens. So I got Ravens over Houston. I think they learned from the first time with a bye with Harbaugh and Lamar. I think maybe Houston going into Baltimore, more of a dome team, playing indoors, going to Baltimore in the winter is a little bit different, in my opinion. I like Baltimore, but 9.5 is a lot of freaking points. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that, but 9.5. And if it gets to 10 is a lot of points. But I like Baltimore, so we're in a consensus there with Baltimore. Okay, moving on to the NFC. We got the 7 seed Green Bay Packers, who are coming off a blowout win, even though the final score doesn't really depict it. A absolute blowout win over the 2 seed Cowboys. They're traveling to California to take on the 1 seed San Francisco 49ers. This is the final game on Saturday. Right now, the spread at the moment on Wednesday night is San Fran -9.5. Jared, initial thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so I'd say my initial thoughts, they played phenomenal against the Cowboys. However, the Cowboys are a team that have shown to lose some bad games. Not saying like Packers are bad, but 2 seed, 7 seed
lose big games. They lose big games. They're supposed to win.
There's a formula to beating the Cowboys, and they just did the formula exactly. Not exactly, but close to it. Jordan Love looked phenomenal. The receiver stepped out. It was a committee. Aaron Jones played well. Like defense turning it over, and just my initial thoughts are how much was that the Packers just playing incredible versus the Cowboys just not knowing what the hell is going on. Like,
yeah,
the first half, CeeDee Lamb and Dak just looked like they're enemies out there. Like they couldn't run the ball. The defense just couldn't do anything. Like, and which we've seen the defense could be really good, could be really bad. They just did not show up that game. So, like, how much of that was Packers playing phenomenal, or like the Cowboys just blah?
I think you're spot on. When we're trying to, I guess, obviously we're gonna pick this game in a bit, but we're kind of analyzing this game from afar. What, like, I agree. Like, do you want to buy into Green Bay, or because if you do, you could get burned? Is it more like you're saying, like Dallas? Is it Dallas's bigger issues? Does Green Bay had the recipe, right? Buffalo did this a handful of weeks ago, and I tweeted this. Buffalo ran for over 200 yards. I tweeted this. A box score the Bills rushing attack during the game. Like that, Bills gave the NFL kind of the path to beating Dallas, is running the ball because Dallas is very undersized at linebackers. And Green Bay started really fast. And Dallas is a type of team like Miami, the team that can't get down. They don't know how to play when they're down. Their defense is great, Dallas, when they're up 10, when they're up 14, when they can kind of pin their ears back and go after the quarterback, but not when they have to grind it out. And it kind of got out of hand for Dallas. Credit to Green Bay. Green Bay, I read today, is one of the best. I forgot the exact amount of points they scored in the first quarter. Is one of the best first quarter teams in the National Football League. That's what they've excelled at all year. What they can do against San Francisco, and I'm not trying to take a shot at Brock Purdy, but I don't think Brock Purdy is light years ahead of Jordan Love. Yeah, but I do think Brock Purdy's cast around him is light years ahead of Jordan Love's.
You can make a case Jordan Love's better than Brock Purdy.
100%. You can 100% make that. Make Brock Purdy play from behind. If you can make him have to not be up 10, if you go down they did this against Dallas, JR. Matt LaFleur wanted the ball. He got the ball instead of deferring, which most teams do. He got the ball. He's like, we're going to go score, and we scored. We're up 7-0. They're already playing down 7 points. I think that's the same. Look, scoring against San Francisco and scoring against Dallas, I think it's two different type of game plans. San Francisco is great in the middle with Fred Warner and Greenlaw as well. Like San Francisco is a very grinded out defense, but it's a different game plan on how to score. But I think it's the same type of recipe when you are trying to get the lead. Obviously, you want to score early, but I think if you go up 7-0, or Jared, if you go up 7-0, get a stop, kick a field, you go up 10-0. I don't know. Like you're telling me if you go up 10-0 on the sideline, they're not going to be like, oh crap. Like Brock Purdy's not going to have a little like, I'm going to have to go make a play. Like if you kind of let San Fran just kind of do their thing, you're going to lose this game.
Yeah.
It kind of, because San Fran is too good with Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy has too many playmakers to kind of play with the lead. But if you go down early, if you're San Fran, I think it becomes a little like the arena gets, or the stadium gets a little quiet. They kind of a little bit shell shocked, like they did in Dallas, not know what hit them. I don't know. Like Jordan Love can make throws, and if you give this kid confidence, he's not afraid to sling it back there. So the recipe for me would be Green Bay come out firing, kind of take it to them right away, and see if Brock Purdy can answer. Maybe he can, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I see what you're saying, and I agree. They got to come out and score quickly, like they did.
Well, obviously, everyone always has to come out and score. It's ideal.
You like to do that. If they do that, they're set up for success. But I think the different with like the formula is that you score early on the 49ers. Yes, you want Brock Purdy playing from behind.
Mm-hmm.
However, you go up 7. The thing with the 49ers that I saw them as like Super Bowl contenders versus the Cowboys, who I never really saw as a Super, like we knew the formula, like lose bad games, is that when they're down, their defense doesn't just collapse like the Cowboys do. So then you put more points on more. It's like a domino effect. However, with the 49ers, you go up 7. Their defense doesn't get even their offense doesn't get, we got to score quick. Even if they're down 14, they still play their game. They'll run you down the field with McCaffrey, pick you off screens, Ayuk, So I don't think that, and their defense, so like you're down 14, their defense isn't rattled. They'll keep getting stops in the middle of the game. Like you're not going to just domino effect and just put up 35 on them,
Yeah.
So that's the difference where Brock Purdy still doesn't need. Yes, fourth quarter you're down. Yes, he's going to have to play out of his shell and make some plays, which hurts them. However, throughout the game, he's not changing it up. He's not throwing it downfield more than he has to or more than he usually does. Still handing it off to McCaffrey, give screens to McCaffrey, let him make plays like he does. So that's the difference I see what you're saying with the formula. That yes, it's similar to the Cowboys. However, they're a better team. They're a better unit. They're from behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just saying, like,
I know. Yeah, I know.
I think you want to put Brock Purdy into position to have to go make a 3rd and 8.
Yes.
Or
I think in the fourth quarter, if they could compete and make it close and then score that 3-point lead, then Yeah.
I think Green Bay's if it's a one possession game, obviously either way, in my opinion, I think Green Bay has a chance in the fourth quarter. I
Hmm.
do because I do think Jordan Love is kind of fearless back there, and they've had success. But look, I agree. The 49ers, this is another step up in the level of competition. The 49ers are second best defense in the National Football League and have the first number one ranked offense in the National Football League. This 49ers is a really good team.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take anything away from San Fran, but I think I would live with it if Brock Purdy, if I left the game, if I was a Green Bay fan or whatever, and after the game was like Brock Purdy beat me. I'd be like, okay. But I would be very frustrated if Brock Purdy didn't have a great game and we lost. I just feel like you don't want to
Yeah.
you don't want to just make it easy on Brock Purdy and he can just get in third and shorts, kind of hand it off to Christian McCaffrey or jet sweep it to Deebo Samuel, right? I think you want to have to make him earn the possessions and kind of make him earn everything. San Fran's not invincible. They had a 3-game losing streak in the middle of the year. I don't think anybody in the National Football League this year, which makes it really exciting for, I guess, you and I, and just to cover and all that stuff, that
Yeah.
I think it's really wide open. San Fran's a really good team, but Green Bay's coming in hot. They're coming in firing. They're like Houston. They're even more like Houston in the sense that they have nothing to lose. Like they're probably the one team in this, I think, in the playoffs right now, or the team that stands out most that has nothing to lose, and that becomes dangerous. But San Fran is 100%, and I agree with you, a step up in the level of competition, which is crazy to think from a 1 seed to a 2 seed.
Yeah. But I do think like what we saw from the Packers is not like just it was just because the Cowboys suck. Their offense is really good and their defense is steps up. Like their defense is not shabby at all. I think if they could keep it within like a 10-point game going into half, like just 10 points. If it's
Okay.
over that, that's a little too much. Keep it within 10 and then just like try some new plays on offense because they have the capability, like we saw, just going down the field easily and scoring. Obviously, 49ers defense really good.
Mhm.
But if they can keep it within 10, make some plays on offense, and then, like you said, put some pressure on Purdy. Oh, they're only up 3. Like, there's a big possession for them to come down and score, and doesn't score, then defense, like your offense is hype, like you have
Yeah.
momentum. So keep it
Well,
within 10 going into half.
one final thing I want to say, just for time sake, because I want to get to our picks. But like, Jared, it's a 5-point game. Say San Fran's up 4.5 minutes left, 3rd and 8.
Yeah, like you just said.
Go, go make Brock Purdy win the game, right? Like if that happens, I think Green Bay, obviously they won't be happy, but like can live with it, right?
Yeah.
If it's 3rd and 8, 4 minutes left,
He rolls out of the pocket.
Yeah, San Fran's up 5. They go to it, but you go get a stop there. He doesn't make the right throw, incomplete pass. Look, you got 4 minutes down 5 to go win the football game, right? Like that is where you kind of want to be there, right? So I think Green Bay has to keep this close. So with that being said, JR, Packers at 49ers right now on Wednesday night. This consensus on the spread is San Fran is -9.5. What do we got?
All this hype of talk about the Packers make me want to pick them so bad. But I'm going to go 49ers. I just think they're a more complete team. It's going to take a lot for the Packers to win. Not saying they can't do it, but I'm going 49ers. They've been playing really well mostly all the year. So, yeah.
Yeah, look, we talked a lot about the Texans. We talked about a lot of the Packers because obviously they're 2 teams we just watched. And we watched them and they played really well. 2 of the best games they probably played all year. I'm not going to pick against the 49ers. I think they're too talented on offense. And I think Green Bay kind of had the hurrah last week. And I'm not going to take anything away from Green Bay, but I think they kind of exerted all their energy into that game. San Fran at home, once again, I'm going to say it is a lot of points. It's a lot of points. Yeah. So what you guys know on Saturday, what we're thinking with that.
Hey, also, 49ers lose this game, then everyone's talking about, it's Purdy not good enough to lead this team.
You said in the beginning, when we started talking about, I said in the beginning, it's not, I don't think Purdy's better than Jordan Love. Yeah. In the sense of like Purdy's an A+ and Jordan Love's a B+. They're if you want to say one's better than other, I don't really care. Yeah. But they're really close in the spectrum. One just plays with a very young cast, and the other plays with George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk.
I know we got to change that, but like you said, I think one, like Jordan Love, has a much higher ceiling. Right now, they're like this, but I think like Purdy and then like Jordan Love could get really good. So,
but if you're Brock Purdy, at the end of the day, it's a team game, and you live with. We all wish our teams had that supporting cast, and I wouldn't care if anybody called my quarterback mid if I had that supporting cast. I think I could live with it. Okay, moving on to Sunday. The first game on Sunday is the final NFC game of the weekend. It's the 4-seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are coming off a win over the 5-seed Eagles, taking on the road at the 3-seed Lions, who are coming off their first playoff win, which feels like in 100 years, while beating the Los Angeles Rams. So 4 Buccaneers, 3 Lions. Jared, what are you liking in this game, man?
Yeah, so I'll start with the Bucs game. The Bucs just came out like a team, like we were talking about in the other podcast. This just has nothing to lose, and they just showed it. And then on the other side, the Eagles, when they played the Eagles, they came like a team that was just the culture was just coming down. Everyone just like felt like depressed and just did not look well. I said Baker Mayfield kind of reminded me of Ryan Fitzpatrick, slinging the ball. However, you've had Ryan Fitzpatrick on the Bills. I've had him on the Jets. Very up and down player. One game he slings it 300 plus yards. The other game can't seem to find a receiver. Mm-hmm. So that'll be something to talk about heading into the Lions matchup. And like Mike Evans wasn't even that. Either he missed a couple deep balls, but like stats wise, he didn't do phenomenal. He got 48 yards. That's not a Mike Evans game, and they still blew the socks off of the Eagles. So that's interesting as well. Going to the Lions, they looked really. It was a close game. That was probably the closest game of the weekend. Yeah. Both teams look really well, and Lions were very close to letting up, a field goal or something towards the end. Their defense got the stop. Aiden Hutchinson, and that. He is kind of like the pass rush on that team. So when I say him in the pass rush, he is it. He had 2 sacks, maybe. I remember he had 2 during the game. I don't forget if he got another. But yeah, I'm not gonna say the Lions came out exactly what we know the Lions to be. They didn't play phenomenal. They didn't play bad. This is the team that I expected to see, if that makes sense. Not saying they didn't go above expectations. They didn't go below.
That's fair.
This is and Dan Campbell making those calls. That's what he expected out of the Lions. Happy to see them. Shout out. They got their first win in 30 playoff win in 32 years or so, since the 1800s. But yeah, those are my thoughts. First off, with those 2 teams.
Yeah, this is another, I guess, matchup that I never really saw coming in the divisional round. Maybe more last week, but you were on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You texted guys. Jared texted me Tuesday morning. There goes my voice, but Jared texted me Tuesday morning. He's like, "You got to clip this Buccaneers pick."
I was proud.
It's a good pick, and I clipped it, and we got it on social media. So Jared picked the Bucs last week. Picked the Bucs spread, but he also picked the Bucs straight up to win the football game as home dogs. Mm-hmm. So shout out to you for believing in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You said go with your gut. Remember, I was going back and forth. You said go with your gut.
You always go with your gut, man. You got nothing to lose. This is a fun matchup. I think this game, first glance, this game is probably going to be way closer than I think people want to think.
Yeah.
Because I like Detroit. I'm not in love with Detroit. I think Dan Campbell is a very good coach, but he also tends to make some very boneheaded mistakes, like we saw against Dallas a couple weeks ago. I thought the Lions played great. I thought they came out of the gates great against LA. They were not great in that second half.
Yeah.
They came and kind of they slowed down completely against the second half against the Rams. And Rams had a couple chances to go win that football game, and we could be talking about the Lions not winning that game.
Stafford was basically just hanging on by a limb.
Oh my God, ribs! It looked like his head. I don't know how he was not pulled from that game.
See him on the ground?
No idea where. We're yanking guys all the time for head injuries, rightfully so.
I don't know how he's able to come back.
And I don't know how the guy upstairs was like, he's fine. No, he's not fine.
Playoffs, baby.
They didn't care. But I think Detroit in this game has to play more of a complete game. I think Tampa Bay is very similar to LA in talent level. Tampa Bay has a good quarterback. I think Matthew Stafford's better than Baker, but Baker Mayfield's playing some really good football right now. Tampa Bay can run the ball. Rashad White's having a great year. And they got some weapons. In Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Trey Palmer took one to the house because Philadelphia Eagles.
Who was that guy, Davis, who scored the first touchdown for them?
Daquan Davis?
I don't know his first name, but he came out of nowhere. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, well, Eagles also looked at you and I out there tackling. They didn't tackle anybody. So if Detroit might want to tackle someone in this football game, but look, it's in Detroit. I think that also does favor Tampa Bay. Like, there's no weather effect for each team. It's an indoor stadium. I think Tampa Bay is playing some really good football right now, and I like Detroit. They have weapons. Samuel Porter's been very good. Obviously, came back. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have a two-headed monster, Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Detroit needs more pass rush, though. They need someone outside of Aiden Hutchinson to go make a play off the edge. Yeah. I don't know who that player is. And Jared, we have talked about, and people have talked about this nationally, Detroit is not a great back secondary team. There's 32 NFL teams in the league, right? They are 29th in the NFL in coverage.
Yeah.
The Buccaneers can 100% exploit that secondary. That is, I think, is a huge weakness when it comes to Detroit. I thought Matthew Stafford had a great game. I just thought a couple possessions didn't go their way, but the Rams Rams moved the ball really well against Detroit. It's a couple plays here or there at the end of the game that goes in Detroit's favor. It's not like Detroit absolutely dog walked LA, and I think LA is very similar to Tampa Bay. So I think everyone's on Detroit, and I get that 100% so, but I do think this game is really similar to the Detroit-LA game. I really do, and that game came down to a couple plays.
Yeah, and the one thing that I give Detroit secondary credit with against the Rams, I don't I'm not a defensive coordinator. I don't read defenses like they do, but it seemed as if, I don't know if this was the Rams game plan, but it was all Puka Nacua, and I know he's been playing really well. So I'm not saying they obviously he gets the ball a lot, but just that game felt like it was all Puka, and it kind of took Cooper Kupp out of the game.
They did.
I was waiting for him. I'm like, okay, first half, Cooper Kupp not that involved. The second half, he's Matthew Stafford's go-to guy. Still, down the stretch, he wasn't getting the ball. He'd get the ball in a third down attempt, and he got it a couple times, but I don't know if that was them taking him out of the game or just Matthew Stafford going to Puka knowing that they're key on Cooper Kupp.
They covered Cooper Kupp really well in the red zone, and wanting credit to Detroit's secondary defense as a whole, they were great in the red zone. They held LA to a ton of field goals, and one of the reasons the Lions won the game is because they kept them out of the end zone. So red zone defense. Look, if in the NFL playoffs, you can 100% get away with if you have a good offense, a bend don't break defense. If you give up field goals, your offense, you have a good enough offense that you trust to get 20 plus points, and you keep teams for the most part of the end zone and give field goals up when they get in the red zone, you're going to win a lot of playoff games. And Detroit had that, I think, philosophy in the wild card round against the Rams, and I think it works again against Tampa Bay potentially.
And then you got to give the Buccaneers defense credit too. I mean, they're kind of, to me, I think, I don't know stats, but just the eye test, they played a little better than not that game, but I think they're a little better than the Texans defense, not secondary, but just overall unit. I don't know, just eye test. I think Buccaneers I have given them the edge over the Texans, just whole defense. I know the stats might say differently or the rankings, but just probably because some names on that team that have been good for a long time, but they played really well against the Eagles. I mean, I think it's similar to the Packers with the Cowboys. The Eagles just weren't going to win that game as soon as the Buccaneers opened the door wide open in the beginning, just throwing dimes. So they had that confidence, okay, this team's not winning. And the Eagles just had the opposite, okay, everyone's playing bad. But I will also say, obviously, yes, you could say this for every team. If they come out firing, if they come out like the Buccaneers did last night, or not last night, but last game, they could win this game.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel for this type of team, it's a big what if, 50-50 shot. Which Buccaneers offense are you getting? Are you getting one that's going to struggle, put up some points with just, Mike Evans Bob once in a while? Or are you going to get a team like they played against the Eagles? So, yes, you could say that for every team, but I think it's more so for the Bucs. I think there's a very hit or miss offense. So that's where it comes down to who you're picking, That's my big thing.
Tampa Bay, they're a 9-8 team that won the division.
They
right?
played
Like,
8 bad games, 9 really good games. Probably.
yeah, so they're very inconsistent. And I don't look. I like the Buccaneers. I'm not in love with the Buccaneers, but it doesn't matter.
It's a fun
It's when
storyline
you,
for sure.
yeah, they
Yeah.
maybe they have found consistency. They can run the ball really well with Rashad White. Baker Mayfield's not turned the ball over, and they have some good weapons, right? Like, I agree. I think Tampa Bay's defense metrics don't tell you they're good or a great defense, but I do think the eye test is a little better, and they're starting to play a little better, and they're starting to find their groove. They can get after the quarterback, right? Like, on paper, the Eagles are better than Detroit. Detroit's played much better football than the Eagles were heading into the postseason. Obviously, the Eagles were absolutely reeling an all-time pace. The Lions and Bucks did meet on October 15th. The Lions won 20-6 in that
So
matchup.
that's like the bad offense of the Bucks.
Baker Mayfield was 19 for 37 for 206 yards and an interception, and Rashad White 7 carries for 26 yards. That is not the recipe. So don't do that if you want to win this game. Detroit didn't run the ball either. Well, Craig Reynolds was their leading rusher, 10 carries for 15 yards. So I don't know what the hell happened in that game.
I also do want to mention, like you said, yes, I mean, Detroit has to get after the quarterback. But like you also, like we mentioned, Aiden Hutchinson seems to be the only guy. And looking back at that Eagles game, he had a lot of time in the pocket. He was moving around and then just started it.
Who, Jalen Hurts?
No, Baker. Like,
we said Baker.
Like the Eagles were able to get to him. And if that happens against Detroit, you give him time with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Trey Palmer, and there's now this Davis guy.
I'm going to go find this Davis guy.
like this could be dangerous. So yeah, they definitely need to get the Baker, and if they don't, especially he was banged up last week, it's only a week, maybe getting a little better. I know he just played, so it's like you get banged up again. But it seems what?
You mean David Moore? Is that what we're talking about here?
David Moore, that's it. They kept saying David, so I just thought of Davis.
He had 2 catches for 50 plus yards. What do you have? 2 catches for
that first one was the touchdown.
2 catches for 66 yards. The touchdown was a 44-yard.
So yeah, he wasn't heavily involved, but you can make some plays.
It's David Moore. One final thing I want to get to this before we pick. The first matchup, Detroit scored 20 points. Tampa Bay scored 6. I think if you're Tampa Bay, you would take giving up 20 points.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you won't take 6 points.
Your team played last week, yeah.
But I do think if you give up 20 points to Detroit, you have a chance in this football game, 100%. So the defense, I think, played pretty well their first meeting. Their offense obviously had one of their worst offensive performances. So we'll see if they can change that on Sunday. So with that being said, Jared, Bucks, Lions, what do we got?
Yeah, I really want to pick the Bucks, keep riding them, but I'm going Lions here. This is too of an up and down team. I don't think the storyline's fun, but it's not going to continue, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Lions, hey, I think they're going to play well. I think this is a team that can compete for a Super Bowl chance. So I'm going Lions here.
I'm going to go with my gut here. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay. Yes, we need someone on the Bucks.
Yeah, look, I don't think Detroit played an A+ full game against the Rams. I think they played an A+ first half. I thought they played more of a B second half. Tampa Bay has a recipe. Baker Mayfield doesn't have to throw for a ton of yards. Let them run with Rashad White, control the clock, and let your playmakers in David Moore, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Trey Palmer, Cade Otton. Like, I think they have a nice cast of players.
Cade Otton. I forgot about Cade.
Yeah, obviously Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are very, very good players, and Mike Evans is probably a future Hall of Famer. But it's one of those things where I think Tampa Bay has a recipe. The weather, there's no weather factor. Obviously, it's gonna be a hostile environment in Detroit. I don't know. Everyone's on Detroit. Some weird upset, even though I guess Kansas City beating Buffalo is technically an upset. It's a 2.5-point spread. Like, I'm not gonna
it's kind of
clamoring for a crazy upset. Either Tampa Bay Packers or Houston winning is an upset in my opinion. So I'm gonna pick my upset of the week. I'm gonna go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay, need someone on that.
So obviously, we can't go over an hour because of StreamYard. So we're gonna do a little bit of a quick thing here, just not to keep you guys so long. If you guys are listening, we appreciate Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe. If you're here right now, we appreciate it. Final game of the weekend, the 3-seed Kansas City Chiefs, who are coming off a win over the Miami Dolphins, and the 2-seed Buffalo Bills, who are coming off a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. This game is on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, and right now the spread consensus is at Buffalo -2.5. Jared, what do we like in this game?
Yeah, so I think off the bat, like everyone's expecting a shootout like we've seen. Have they played twice in the playoffs? Twice or once?
They played a handful of times in the regular season, twice in the playoffs.
Yeah, so we've seen some crazy playoff games
Mhm.
between these two teams. However, I just think it's a different dynamic. Obviously, it could be a high-scoring game, mid to high. When I think of shootout, I think back and forth, just scoring the ball.
40 points, something like that.
Yeah. I think these teams have shown like the Bills went up really early against the Steelers, and then they kind of plateaued a little bit.
Mhm.
And then the Chiefs, they're just not the same team as they usually are. They kind of relying on their defense a lot more this year. And we mentioned in the last podcast they need someone else to step up, like Travis Kelce, and we knew it was going to be Rashee Rice if anyone stepped up, and he did. He played 130 yards, 1 touchdown. But to beat a team that's okay being a team like the Dolphins, who haven't shown up in big games, playing in cold. But for a team like the Bills, you need that third. Like, I know Pacheco stepped up. I'm talking like receiver here. If you want it to compete, shootout wise, you need a third guy to get 60 plus yards, some other guy that the other two get taken out. You need someone like there's no one else, like Noah Gray, 1 catch, 20 yards, Justin Watson, 2 catches, 20. Like those are the 3 and 4 like receivers. I'm not going to talk too much because I know you want to talk about the Bills. But I don't think it's going to be like a big shootout like everyone expects the old matchups to be.
I think you're 100% right. I think this game is closer to both teams scoring 20 than they are to scoring 30. I think if they're in their regular season matchup in Arrowhead, the Bills won 20-17, right? Like I think both of these teams know each other well. Both of these teams have the Chiefs are 2-0 in the playoffs against the Bills. The Bills have beat the Chiefs a handful of times in the regular season. So the Chiefs have the upper hand in the playoffs, obviously when it counts, and the Bills have the upper hand in the regular season. This is Patrick Mahomes' first road game in the playoffs, which is a crazy thing to think of, which is I'm going to give credit to the Chiefs for
6 years in the league now.
Yeah, like I think he's played 16. I'm just off the top of my head. I think he's played 16 playoff games so far, and he has had 16. Obviously, not including Super Bowls. It's a neutral site that doesn't count, which is crazy to think. So we'll see how he does on the road. Obviously, Orchard Park will be rocking. It'll be freezing. It's not like Kansas City's not used to the cold, so there's no advantage either for the cold or weather. There's no one's getting advantage here, unlike I think maybe Houston at Baltimore potentially, like that type of game. So Bills are very banged up in the middle of the field right now. They had some key injuries. They are getting some key guys back.
Dude, during that game, it felt like every play someone was just going down both sides.
Yeah, injuries not as bad as they were first. Like when you originally thought, the injuries are better than coming into throughout the week. They're getting Douglas back, who's one of their best corners who didn't play last week. They're getting Dotson, one of their starting linebackers, back. So the Bills are getting healthier, but they also dealing with some injuries at the same time. So they're getting some guys back. They're losing some guys potentially, depending on how the rest of the week goes. Look, the Bills have had a recipe the last 6 games. They've won 6 in a row, including Pittsburgh, to get into the playoffs. And they're running the ball with James Cook really well. They're using their tight ends really well. Shakir's starting to turn into a little bit of a playmaker for the Bills. And obviously, Stephon Diggs is still doing, for the most part, his thing. He had 7 catches against Pittsburgh. This game's in Buffalo. It's going to be fun. I want to see if Kansas City, I agree, can have another guy step up outside of Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce, but I don't think this game is going to be your typical shootout. It's going to be your typical 21-18, 24-21 victory, 24-23, whatever, right? Like I think every possession counts. For Kansas City, their strength is over the middle of the field with Travis Kelce, so that's where they're going to exploit the Bills. But Kansas City, like I said last week against Miami, they struggle at the tackle position. Miami had no one to go after the tackle position.
And the old Chiefs, that's a game they're going to blow the socks off that team. I mean,
yes,
they
I agree.
6-7, but
that game was closer than.
Yeah, it's closer.
That game was closer than we.
I mean, their defense just totally stepped up. That's what happened.
Yes, but the tackles are very up and down for Kansas City, and the Bills have a pass rush that includes Leonard Floyd, Gregory Rousseau, and AJ Benenzo, who are having all incredible years. And I'm not even mentioning Von Miller, who had probably one of his better games against Pittsburgh this season. So I think the Bills can kind of exploit them there. This game is going to be close, right? Like the 2.5, 3 points doesn't matter to me. Like this is a kind of a coin flip type of game.
Pete, from the Bills' perspective, who or what do the Bills need to do to get that edge over the Chiefs? Like, is it running game? Is it James?
I think it's running game because the Bills, when they have been on this win streak, they've been able to run the ball, right? Like with James Cook and all that stuff. Even Ty Johnson last week had a couple double-digit rushing attempts, which is crazy to think. And obviously Josh Allen, right? Like the Bills in playoff mode let Josh Allen kind of run. You don't see this as much in the beginning of the year with the regular season. I think the Bills, when they kind of go off script, with Josh Allen uses his legs. I don't know if Kansas City has a legit guy to tackle him. I don't know if anybody has a legit guy. One final thing on the Bills. Can't turn the ball over. You got to be smart with the ball. They didn't turn the ball over against Pittsburgh outside of a blocked field goal. I don't know if that counts as a turnover.
No, it's not a turnover.
That's not. It's just don't make that mistake again. That's stupid. That gave Pittsburgh life and got Pittsburgh back in the game. So don't do that against Kansas City if you're up 21-0, which would be cool. But I think if you're the Bills, you kind of have to run the ball, not turn the ball over. And I think this is a type of game where every possession counts because I don't know if there's going to be a ton of possessions.
And I think huge for the Bills, they got to play the game like fully through. You can't let.
Like, they're not going to. So.
What?
They're not going to because they always.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to do. I mean, not saying you can score every quarter, but just like play the game fully through and like never like plateau to where you're just like down 14-0 in the short little like quarter, you know? Because you never want a team like Patrick Mahomes to be in it with 5 minutes left in the game or like only down one score. Just play it through and don't go highs and lows, which I know it's very hard to say. That's a key, I feel like, if they want to take care of business.
Kansas City's offense hasn't been great, Jared. I was at your house Christmas Day. We watched them lose to the Vegas Raiders, right? Like the Chiefs are very beatable. So are the Bills. The Bills were 6-6 at one point, and I never thought when we would be talking about the Bills in the divisional round.
I would never think about like this as like 2 years ago. It's like this could be like a defensive match. Not saying like their defenses are going to carry, but just like a defensive matchup. Whose ever defense, like
I agree,
surrenders first.
I don't even know what the over under is at the moment, but let's see. I'm going now. Over under is 45.5 right now.
I was going to guess 48. But,
over's enticing, like a 27-24.
It's reasonable.
That's reasonable, but I do think it's closer to 20. Okay. That being said, our final pick of the day. We've been almost all in agreement. We both went Ravens. We both went 49ers. Jared went Lions. I went Buccaneers. Chiefs at the Bills. What do we got? And right now, the Bills are currently on Wednesday night -2.5.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is a very hard pick because I feel like these teams are they're very similar. Obviously, Bills much better offense, but then I give the defense to the Chiefs. I just think very like similar game plans on how to beat each other. In my heart, I kind of like the Chiefs a little bit. I like Mahomes, so I'm not gonna. It's kind of like my similar like Alabama. I'm not gonna pick against Saban. Now I could always pick against Alabama because he's gone. But with Andy Reid and the Chiefs, I'm not gonna bet against or not pick against them. I'm gonna go Chiefs.
100% fair, man. It's tough to not pick against Patrick Mahomes, but I want to see what his first road playoff game.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
It's going to be. It's which is also it's going to be credit. It's credit to him that how good him and Andy Reid have been together.
Yeah.
Not having to play a road playoff game. We know the Bills have had to play a ton of road playoff games. The Bengals have had to play a ton of road playoff games. I feel like I've always played the Chiefs in Arrowhead. The only time we've ever played the Chiefs not in Arrowhead was the COVID year in Buffalo, and there was no fans, which is basically not playing in Buffalo because there were no fans. And the Bills and Josh Allen's 5-1 at home in the playoffs. I'm going to go with the Bills. Not super confident, but this is my type of game. The team with the ball last wins the game. I think it's like someone kicks a field goal 42, 45 yards, or the defense is going to have to go make a stop, right? Like I would be shocked if this doesn't come down to the last possession. Either team has to make a stop, or team makes a winning touchdown, winning field goal. Like, I would be shocked if either team's up 10 with a minute and a half left.
Yeah.
And the game's
I
over.
agree.
Like, I don't expect a blowout, which we might see in some other games. So I'm going to go the Buffalo
I
Bills.
will. I like dropping bombs at the end of these podcasts. If the Chiefs do lose, I will say I wouldn't be surprised if Travis Kelce retires. I'll say
Him
that.
and Jason Kelsey have the second best
Not
podcast.
honestly, not because of Jason. I know the Jason Kelce thing just dropped, so it's like okay.
Oh,
But I just think this year he looked not the same. He looked aging, and now he's got Taylor Swift. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he retires if they do lose.
I agree. That'd be interesting. And obviously Kansas City would go into a little bit of a spiral. But look,
Yeah.
Travis Kelce and Jason Kelsey have the second best sports podcast behind us. So maybe they want to focus a little bit. Nah, I'm totally joking there. I think they get like 1 million views a month or some shit.
Yeah.
Or 1 billion views per episode. We don't have 1 million views on this channel. So, but if you want to make us like Travis Kelce and Jason Kelsey, first Jaron have to go play in the NFL for 12 years and then become famous, and then we'll come back and do a podcast
and become brothers.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're not brothers. That is also hindering. I think we have a better chance to become brothers. This sounds really weird. Become brothers than play in the NFL. So I don't know how that's even possible, but it sounds like it's more possible than you and I playing in the NFL. Okay. With that being said, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on YouTube and all that stuff. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And as always, we are sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you guys use code TSP. It's the NFL playoffs. Get on Underdog Fantasy. Use code TSP for 100% deposit match. And JR, before we get out of here, where can everyone follow us on the social media platforms?
Guys, we are on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Talking Sports PD. We're gonna post our spread picks, not just just the picks, but our spreads. Things could change. Spreads are different, spreads are tricky. So we'll give you that later this week before the games start. And so follow us for all that jazz at Talking Sports PD on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
Yeah, make sure you guys do that. As always, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we appreciate everyone that watched last week's video. Let's hope we get the same amount of success. You guys did great with the views on YouTube. Okay, that is going to do it for this episode, the NFL Divisional Round preview. We'll be back next week previewing the AFC and the NFC Championship games. Until then, hopefully you guys have a nice weekend. Appreciate you guys watching. And as always, thank you.